Hi there, my name is Deborah Melkin. I'm Deb the DBA. I'm also a Microsoft MVP for the data platform. And today, let's talk installing SQL Server Management Studio 21. So we're going to work with the Preview 2 version of this. Preview 1 was about a month ago. Now we're on to Preview 2. Now I know what you're thinking. It's Management Studio, right? Why would it be such a big deal? Why would I want to record a video talking about this and installing it? Well, the last time there was a major change, it was way back in SQL Server 2016. Before that, whenever you wanted to install Management Studio, you had to install it with a database engine or at least use the same installer for it. So this meant things like people would install things on their production box. They'd install SQL Server and get the tools. Someone would go into the production box, open Management Studio, and all sorts of things would happen because they'd overrun Management Studio, yada yada. It's just not something that you necessarily want your tools with your database engine because of those sort of issues. Breaking it apart allowed a lot of new opportunities. One of them is the ability to update Management Studio without waiting for the next version of SQL Server. So it's really advantageous to have these two split. And when you did that, the 2016 install, and it's pretty sure it's been the same since, it's been very simple. You open the installer, you click install, it installs, and then you're done. Pretty fast, pretty easy, it all worked. And if you pay attention to these screenshots, I did this back in July 2016. And as I said, not much has changed. However, now with 21, Management Studio 21, there are some major fundamental changes behind the cover. So now we're going to have all sorts of changes, and that includes how we install it. And I'm pretty excited for the changes for Management Studio. I think they're kind of a big deal, and I really want to see what happens. If we go over to Microsoft's documentation, we can see what some of those changes are and why we may want to start paying attention now with what's coming. The update to Visual Studio 2022. Management Studio has always been based off of Visual Studio. Now we have newer code base that it's based off of, so we're going to get a lot of those new changes that come with it, including this one, which I'm super excited for, 64-bit architecture. You heard me correct, 64-bit. It's been 32-bit until now, so now we should have better performance and faster Management Studio, and who doesn't want that? There's definitely UI changes which are exciting, query editor, improved Azure administration. One that I'm looking forward to is looking at this Git integration. I've been using source control in my entire career as a database platform professional, working with developers, so I'm really excited that now the tool that I spend most of my time in is going to have that Git integration. Easier to get things into source control, less going back and forth between things. Super excited to see how that works. All right, now let's do something a little crazy. I'm going to test install. I only got one take at this, right? One machine, hopefully it goes well. Let's see how that works. This is either going to be really cool or kind of a mess, and I'm kind of excited to see which way it goes. So let's see what happens. All right, I'm here on the Microsoft website for the release notes for SQL Server Management Studio 21 preview. It's December 2024. Preview 1 was released about a month ago now, so we're now ready for Preview 2. It's very easy to get. You go to their website, you download it, and we're all set. I've already downloaded it before. We have it here, so I'm going to double click. Let's see how this goes. Wants to know if I can use this. Yes. Here we go. Waiting for the... Notice something different. Visual Studio Installer. We already see this is where our changes are. Wants to set things up so it can do the install. Continue. Downloading, verifying. And now we have our installer here. So now we have workloads, and this is now the Visual Studio installer. It wants to installation details, Management Studio core components. This is what we're going to install. So definitely a change. So I'm just going to click Install and here in the corner. And now we have installed SQL Server Management Studio 21 Preview, starting download operation, install. And you can also see that I've got other Visual Studios installed on my instance, but really don't care about that. I want Management Studio. Here we go with the installer. It's done installing. Visual Studio has been successfully installed. We recommend rebooting soon to clear up any remaining files. Okay. And now that it's here, even from the installer, this is kind of cool. I don't remember seeing this the last time, but now that we have this here, we have something that says launch. Let's see what happens. Got a new splash screen. Let's close that. Sign into SQL Server Management Studio. So now we can start syncing settings across devices, integrate seamlessly, Azure services. Right now I'm going to skip. I'm going to come back because I can set this up later. So I'm skipping for now because I really just want to open the tool and see what's here. Import user settings. Would you like to import Management Studio user settings from a previous version of Management Studio? You know what? I think I'd like that. I had some stuff set up for Management Studio 20. It's got saved user connections. There are definitely some changes. It says Management Studio has important changes to handling connection security, including encryption, certificate validation. But I'm going to go ahead and say import from 20. It wants to connect to a SQL Server instance. All right. So now that I have things installed, I connected to one of my instances. I've opened up a file so we can actually kind of see things, and I've left everything at the default. I haven't fully gone in and set things up the way I want them to, because I'd like some of the different customizations I had previously to carry over. The first is how it looks, the visuals. Well, we know there's been some changes, so I'm going to go to Tools and I'm going to go to Options. And the first we see here is our visual experience as part of the general environment. And if we look, we have different color themes. I'm going to play, blue contrast, SSMS. What's this dark theme doing here? I'm going to see what happens. Oh, look! Dark mode! So for those of you who've been waiting and waiting and waiting for this, here it is. We have dark mode now in in Management Studio. It's not Visual Studio, it's Management Studio, but it's here. I have to be honest, I'm one of the few people who finds dark mode hard to read long term. And if you're presenting and I'm in the room, please turn it off. I have trouble reading it. But if you like working with it, which I know so many of you do, we now have it. I know they're making some changes and still making sure dark mode is everywhere it needs to be, but it's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and fix this for me because it doesn't quite work for my eyes. Curious what we have, a light mode. This looks familiar. I've seen this. It's not quite, but it's still a Visual Studio, so you can tell all of that stuff is here. Let's try that one more time. I'm just going to go back to blue then. Hopefully I won't get confused if I actually open Visual Studio and have Management Studio and need to figure out which is which. But this is still pretty cool. The other thing that I think is really cool now is source control, because having one tool and being able to check into source control is a kind of a big deal. We can see I'm currently set up for Git. That's by default. And if I go to global settings, I went and I changed my default location to where my default location is for all of my folders locally. It's going to be different for you, but I now have this set. And I can do a couple of other things I need as well. Interesting, diff tools use Visual Studio. So now if I need to do diff, it'll use the Visual Studio compare, and I can do my git compares before I check in that way. There are a couple other things that I'm going to want to do. I'm going to want to fix my query results. I'm going to want to change this text editor because I like a different scroll bar. But all of those things are here, and now I can go in and I can make the changes as needed. I'm sure because this is still preview 2, there's going to be more fixes along the ways, more additions. But again, we've got our options, and now we can start playing. But it is exciting to see Git here. So if I go to, let's see, clone repository, local repository, I'm going to open one. I happen to be in my Mastering Dynamics SQL session, so I'm selecting that as my folder. And we can start seeing some changes down here. So if I go to Git, I can now see where things are. I can fetch, I can pull, I can view branch history, because this is always a big deal, what your changes are. I can manage my branches, so I now can see things, I can see how I'm working with. And like I said, I'm able to do this in Management Studio. So things I couldn't do if I was in Visual Studio, now have my different management options that I'm used to for Management Studio, and I can work with Git at the same time. I'm pretty excited about playing with this, making sure it works, seeing what I can do with it. And again, testing out all the different changes they've been making with Management Studio. Don't have time to get into those here, but now that it's installed, now I can start playing with my setup, make sure it works, and go from there. Alright, so hopefully the new install isn't too crazy. It seems pretty straightforward to me. Not the nice 3 screens that we had, but it's still pretty cool. We have a lot of options, and now we have the new Management Studio 21 Preview 2 installed, and now we can start playing with all the setup features, making it work the way that we'd like it to work. But we now have dark mode, we have Git integration, and I think those are really 2 big features that everyone's been wanting. Being able to work the way you like to work in Management Studio when you spend all day there is pretty important, and being able to set it up the way you like it so you are able to work all day and efficiently is really cool. I'm excited to play with it, set it up more, see what's working, see what functionality is there. How's it going to work for me? I hope you install it, have fun, figure out what's going to work for you. And we'll see what happens with those next previews and seeing what those changes are going to be and the improvements. I'm pretty psyched to see what's going on with this one. All right, have fun out there. Bye.